be looking at the distance covered within these 3 bounces. Try and get an understanding where it's going to bounce a bit more after this. So basically from frame 28 we notice that it just gets too slow on the translate Z, and it's got that slowdown but it's happening too quickly, so we probably want that slowdown happening at around frame 37 maybe. So we'll go in here, we'll click on that curve itself, right click and make sure you're on the time part of the timeline where you want to set that key, where you right click and go insert key. Now what I'm going to do in this sense is delete this key and purely work on this key. As we're going through it, we'll keep scrolling. I notice here it covers in this bit, it doesn't move as much, but when you hit this bit here, this bounce tends to move a lot more, and that could purely be down to the translate Y, just purely on its own. So we'll reduce that up just a little bit. And noticing this and understanding how this moves does not necessarily have to happen within the graph editor. There are tools within the viewport that help you. If you click on the animation tab and have the control selected that you want to highlight and go to motion trail, it will not appear straight away because I've hidden everything, so I want to go to show and then go and tick motion trails. So if you notice here, you see that for some reason translate Y looks exactly the same as this motion trail. It's because that's the action it's doing. So you can understand exactly how to animate sometimes within the graph editor purely because of these. So now I'm going to stay in this viewport and use this tool. I noticed that looking at the spacing between this and the timing, that this needs to come in a bit more. So I'm going to hold the shift frame. Well, actually I'm going to move the left mouse, sorry. Drag that one. Let's get rid of them frames and get back to our old ones. We highlight them and delete them. And we'll just work on, don't have to worry about the roll. Okay, so we have the general movement going side to side. Now, the rotate seems to be fine. I'm not necessarily too worried about it, but maybe certain keys need to be dragged on just a little bit longer. For now we'll work with this as the main reference. So you can notice that this kind of dips out a bit too much this way. It's not really necessarily going so much up. So what we'll do in this sense, we'll bring that forward a little bit. Grab these guys, bring them in a little bit. Grab this guy, bring them in a little bit. So we make sure we have a smaller gap than the previous. Now, you notice that it kind of messes up the moving that kind of messed up the whole arc that I had going on there. So I'm going to go back into the graph editor on the translate Y with this tool. I'm going to go into where it's happening. So you notice that that dip out that I was talking about is here. So I want to select this tool. I want to bring it out just a little bit. Just compensate a little for it, that's all. Go into the left view now. You notice it's okay again. And you can literally work from this mode as well, just like if it were to be the graph editor. If you select the actual frame that you want to work with and move like how you did within the graph editor, you literally go to show in and out tangent and select them as on, so highlight them and then select one, press enter, and you'll notice that the handles have appeared. So you can literally play with them and tweak them how you would in the graph editor. So I'm going to press 0, put that back to normal. Now I'm going to work with the squash and stretch. Now, with the squash and stretch, this kind of defines the material in a sense, or the character maybe, depending on what you're doing with the ball. But like I say, I'm going for a normal kind of rubbery type bouncy ball, just a standard one. So I'm just going to add the amount of squash and stretch that I need, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right amount. Anyone can exaggerate, caricaturize it in any way they want, depending on what style they're going for. So at the moment, at this high point, I know that there's not really going to be much squash and stretch within this. So thinking about it. Yes, so thinking about it as it's going down. On this frame, I definitely want it to stretch the most because this is when it's at its fastest point. So now with this rig, a few things to know about this rig quickly is that it's got a few controls that you have to know and make sure you're working towards. So this is the squash and stretch. Even though it's not happening, you don't see anything happen, this is generally the rotation of where that squash and stretch is going to happen, because the squash and stretch is literally within inside that control. So as long as this is positioned the right way, the squash and stretch will be positioned the right way. Okay, so I'm going to go first of all, without showing any squash and stretch, I'm going to key this to literally just press S. I don't have to key select anything because I know that I ain't going to be animating this fully. I'm just going to literally go to the designated key poses and just key where I think it needs to be. So the stretch is going to happen at this point, so I know the stretch is going to be facing that way. So I'm going to select that and key there. Maybe I'll shift that frame so it happens sooner. Now on this part, I'm going to have it turn this way, select S, and then I'm at the high points, I'm always going to have them at 0. It doesn't really matter how it works this way. Go back down to this frame, so around here, have it facing, try and make this line kind of face down to where it's going. And I'm gonna set a key. That contact frame, so oh yeah, do it. Okay, cool. So yeah, this frame, zero that out. Generally your contacts and highs are going to be at 0. It's necessarily the stretch moments that it's going to be rotating at this point. So now I've selected that. I'm going to key that. Now at this point here, I want it to be rotated this way. Select that. Zero this out. Key that. Go back to 2 frames before. Move it this way. Key that. Zero this out on the contact. Key that. In between these 2 frames, I'll have it on frame 30. Literally have it so it's facing this way. Key that. Frame 31. Zero that out. Key that. Frame 32. Have it face that way a bit more. Key that since I'm becoming limited with frames within having to work within. So contact frame. Zero that out, key that, and so on until it's done. So this point here, highest point is 37, so 36, we'll turn it, key that, 37, we'll zero that, and we'll key that, rotate it this way, key that, contact frame zeroed out. Highest point 43. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is literally bring this one in. So, okay. I just shifted that frame because I thought it kind of was the same. It was basically the same length as this one, and I didn't really want it to be doing exactly the same thing.